is Rory O'Toole.
And my name is Matt Schultz.
And this is How to Be,
the podcast where we discuss ancient wisdom, modern hacks, paperback self-help books, and pithy platitudes
in the hopes of figuring out the best way to live this one precious and wild life. In today's bonus episode, we discuss the Hulu documentary Stolen Youth, Inside the Cult at Sarah Lawrence College. Join us, alumni of the school, as we give our reaction to these shocking and true events. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Rory.
We're here for a very special bonus episode of the podcast today where we divert a bit from our typical format.
Yes. Today we're talking about how not to be, really.
We are talking about a documentary that came out and a true story that happened at our alma mater, the college that we met at, where the documentary is called Stolen Youth, Inside the Cult at Sarah Lawrence College. And it's about a father of a student who ended up creating a cult with a handful of his daughter's friends.
Yeah. So he moves into her dorm after he gets out of prison for some reason. And he's like a Marine. Well, he tells them he's like a former Marine, and he sort of whips them into shape and is into like motivation culture,
Accountability
like
culture. Yeah.
Accountability, inspiration, motivation, make your bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And then they move in with him in this weird apartment in New York. And then he starts really abusing them and controlling them and milking their families for money and pimping them out and sexually abusing them, all sorts of stuff. I mean, my experience watching this, I was like, I don't know why I was geared up for this, but I was geared up for it to be like a fun viewing experience because I was like, Sarah Lawrence,
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
This is deeply I was expecting more like that it would be like pinging little nostalgia bells with like interviews with people about Sarah Lawrence culture, but Sarah Lawrence is really only a very small part of it.
It's interesting because whenever this story is mentioned, the college is mentioned a lot.
Yeah, I wondered why that is after watching this.
Well, I think that the documentary actually downplays Sarah Lawrence's complicitness in it. And complicity and their responsibility in it. And I wonder if they made a deal with the college to get all that B-roll, because I was like, they were really filming a lot there.
Yeah, that's an interesting line of inquiry. They did. Yeah. Now, I also was left thinking Sarah I don't think Sarah Lawrence was that complicit. They're really, obviously Sarah Lawrence's role in this is that they did not notice that an adult man was living in one of their private house dorms. It's a little cottage.
Yeah, so dorm isn't exactly what you'd normally think. It's not like a hall. It's a little townhouse type place, like a little kind of shitty townhouse that many people lived in these types of housing after their freshman year. It's communal living. Everyone has a single room. There's a kitchen and a common room. And so he was sleeping mostly in the common room or his daughter's bedroom until eventually he was, abusing one of the other students enough to sleep in her bed.
Oh, God. Yeah. So it seemed like I think they're only really there with him in the house for about a semester, maybe a little longer.
No, they were there. It was so I went back and read the article. So the article and the documentary have not conflicting information, but the article had fleshed out some of those ideas that are not, or some of those points that are not in the documentary. So he was there for the whole sophomore year. He moved in September. And at the end of the documentary, it says Sarah Lawrence has no record of ever hearing about this man. But the parents of Claudia, one of the victims, said that they literally had meetings with the dean of students. And the dean of students was like, well, what do you want me to do? And
Well, not about about him living in the dorm,
yes,
about
about him
her.
living in the dorm.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's what they say. Her parents say that.
Interesting.
And I have
Very
also heard,
interesting.
but I wasn't in the
That's a
article, but
weird thing not to include in the doc.
well, that's why I think that they were like, okay, we won't like call you out too hard if you let us film there.
I don't- can't you just film there? I mean, it was all exterior
No,
shots.
no, because I work at a university, and even if I want to film there for external purposes, I have to go through a whole rigmarole.
Seems weird though to let it drop.
But they did. They obviously didn't mention the fact that Claudia's parents said that.
Yeah, very interesting.
And didn't one of those emails from Claudia say that she told her faculty and the faculty told we're going to tell the administration?
Yeah, so it showed there was like a picture of some emails that they didn't really show you, but it looked like there was a dialogue. But that was when they were already out of the dorms, and Claude and one of them had accused someone else of something and then had written to her teacher being like, no, it's not true. And then the teacher was like, we take these things really seriously. There's a process for this. But
Yeah.
that's all I could get from like a flash of the email on the screen.
Yeah. Well, I guess the thing is like whether they were made aware of it or not, the fact that they weren't aware of it at such a small school is also problematic to me.
Yeah.
You absolutely should not be having a parent live in a dorm.
Yeah. I think if I lived in one of those houses, you could easily get away with it. It's a private house.
There was not a lot of oversight, I guess, is another thing at Sarah Lawrence from the
Yeah.
administration by any means.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, there's not a room check. They don't do a room check.
No, there's no RA situation really beyond your freshman year. Nothing like that.
Yeah. But I don't know how they would solve that by having a room check.
But like also it shows that they're kind of out of touch with the student body for such a small school because I was talking to our friend who was there at the time and he said people knew outside of this circle. Like it was a well-known fact
Yeah.
on campus that there's a dad living in the dorm.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that got around.
Yeah, so when they were freshmen, the people in the cult who
We
eventually
were
became in the cult, we were
seniors.
seniors.
Oh, we did have overlap.
Yeah, we did, but we didn't have overlap with the cult because the cult
No.
started the semester after we graduated.
Wow. Wow. I didn't even realize that we were like students at the same time as those folks. So
Yeah,
that's
we were.
interesting.
Yeah, I didn't recognize anyone from the documentary.
No, but we didn't really know the frosh. Okay, one thing that I was really frustrated with this documentary about, and I just know psychically that you were too, they were not giving us enough information about the daughter, Talia.
100%. And I looked up, I was Googling furiously after I read it. Like, why wasn't Talia included in this documentary more? Like, what happened to her? For example, like all of the people who are like the handful of people who were very much involved in the cult and under Larry's thumb all lived in an apartment with him for their senior year. But Talia was always living on campus. She seemed to not be as present as the rest of them. His daughter. Why was
Yeah,
that?
it's like I don't first of all, it's like, okay, so she's like a real daddy's girl. And she's like, my dad's so cool, he's amazing. He's like she's under his spell also to an extent, but perhaps in a slightly different way than them. And it's weird to like the whole thing of like the daughter being in the cult. Like, shouldn't you be like almost inoculated to your father's bullshit by being his daughter?
Well, the thing
Like,
is that she was manipulated, and the article goes into this more like really manipulated by him from a young age to the point where when her parents were getting divorced, she accused her mom of abusing her, and he
oh,
had turned she had a much younger sister, and she had told people that their mom abused her, blah blah blah, and then it came out that it wasn't true, basically because the younger daughter was like, "Daddy just tells me to tell you that," and
mm,
He ended up going to jail, and instead of her moving back in with her mom, she decided to live in shelters instead. Like she hated her mom, thought her mom was poisoning her, thought her mom, like all these things, because that was his fixation, as being poisoned.
Yeah.
So she was extremely victimized by him, but also she had like the longest leash, I guess.
It's quite a long leash, and she went to Sarah Lawrence. She like applied to a college and went there, which is like weird because like for the rest of them, it really seemed like there was no medium speed on this thing. It's like you get involved with this guy and you are sucked into his world of illusions,
Mm-hmm.
and then you completely lose your sense of self and your ability to like they were not normal people
No,
after, but they were still going to class, which is
I
like
know.
fascinating. It's like, to what extent were they still normal people? And
Well, two
like,
of them, okay, so this happened their sophomore year. Then Dan and Claudia went abroad, and he was still
oh,
they were abroad for the whole year, which is very common at Sarah Lawrence. Junior year, you go abroad.
where'd
And
they
he
go?
was the Oxford program, and he
Dan
was
and which one? Dan and the
Claudia,
oh,
and he was still able to exert that extreme control over them remotely.
remote control. Well, one thing I thought about in this documentary is like, let me see how I phrased it. Um, I wrote down, master manipulators are, all caps, fascinating. It's really a form of genius. It takes a certain degree of self-control to start slow the way he did, start charismatic, not show your mean, nasty, violent side,
Mm-hmm.
and then slowly amp up the pressure, cutting people off from their families. If you did too fast, people would jump out. They would be like, this is weird.
Mm-hmm.
And also the skill to understand the social dynamics in a group, to know who you have to isolate first, who you have to, like,
Yeah, you're
it's
really good at reading people.
what, what's the point? It's like, he so stressful having all this
Well,
chaos in your life.
it's interesting that you were talking about his skills, but I actually, obviously he's very skilled at, I think, recruitment. Where he went wrong was retention. So he was
He's
able
not good
to,
at retention.
yeah, he was able to recruit, I think it was like 7 or 8 people into this, maybe less, maybe 6 or 7 people. And they all, except for 2, eventually leave of their own accord. And I believe that is because a couple things he didn't do right. One is there's no higher purpose. It seemed like the
Mm,
only thing that he was able to implant memories in them where essentially
wow.
they felt, I know that was really intense. We can talk about that more. But essentially everyone felt like they were indebted to him for damaging his property, or he convinced them that they were poisoning him. And that was the real tie, it seemed like, is that they felt indebted to him, and that they were so grateful that he was willing to forgive them, that they were willing to be abused and give them money and all this stuff. But I think a real successful cult leader has a higher purpose. Like, we're going to transcend, we're going to go against society. You're going to get something out of this.
Yeah, and there was, he flirted with that, but he didn't go all the way. It's
No,
like
he
there was
didn't.
like something about the truth, but the truth wasn't well articulated. There was something about reaching your full potential, but it was mostly about the guilt. It was mostly about you damaged my things, which is weird. Like, you broke my spoon. It was very weird, his
Yeah.
fixations.
And it didn't seem like, towards as things started to progress to get worse and worse, it didn't seem like he was like giving them a honeymoon period after like a violent act, like the way that, like, oh, like, I beat you up because I love you so much, and now let's go out and I'm going to treat you to something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was no like, he wasn't doing the ebb and flow of that. It didn't seem like so well to me, which is why people were just couldn't handle it. And so I ended up also reading an article with the director, because I was wondering why some of the stuff that was in the article wasn't in the movie. And he said it just was too gratuitous. And it was already such a hard to watch documentary. They didn't feel the need to like go over every little, or not every little, a lot of them were big, every incident that happened. And one thing that they didn't include in the documentary, CW, content warning for this whole episode, is that they all tried to commit suicide multiple times under his watch.
And my silence, that bit of dead air was a drop jaw.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, like that's a was a weird thing about it is like it was a cult in which you were miserable and kind of
So
aware that you
miserable.
were miserable.
Yes.
Um, so like a lot of them wanted to escape. You know, it's not like, they were like in it, believing in the mission. So I mean, some of them were,
But there wasn't
and
really a mission, is the problem.
yeah, a lot of them just really didn't know how to get out. They were so broken down by this guy, so confused by his authority and by the memory implantation. Okay, speaking of gratuitousness, here's something I want to say. One of the girls was trafficked,
Mm-hmm.
and she did not participate in the documentary, but
Mm-hmm.
she managed to get out of his spell.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was unethical for them to show her website pictures, where she
Mm.
was advertising sexual services. Don't show us those pictures. That's essentially trafficking her on Netflix, in my opinion.
Yes, the documentary is on Hulu, just so everyone knows. But so you don't go to Netflix looking for this. But I completely agree, although we don't know to the extent that she approved certain things, like her storylines being used. For example, they hardly talk about Talia, and she didn't agree to be in the documentary. So maybe she said, you can use my storyline, but
Still, it was lurid. It was it,
yeah.
it its only purpose was the luridness, and
Well, I think that his trafficking her was one of the most extreme things he did.
it was, and I think they could have told us that without showing us those
It was the
pictures. It's
visuals,
just
yeah.
like I think that would probably be like traumatic to have those pictures
Oh.
from this moment when you were like essentially kidnapped
And
and
the
like,
interesting thing was is that he was exerting extreme control over her, but she didn't live with him like the way the others did.
yeah, where was she?
She was living first with like her parents who lived a few blocks away from that apartment,
Insane.
and he still had that much control over her. And then eventually she was like living in hotels.
Okay. I I feel like maybe this is unfair. Some blame for the parents. Can we dish it out?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about the parents and like especially like there's three siblings that are involved in this cult. And these parents gave this man like $200,000. They gave Larry Ray, the cult leader, like $200,000 for these bogus charges, again, for like doing things like breaking a plate.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
I don't know.
Because they weren't cult believers. They were very concerned about their son and daughters. And yet,
Yeah.
but then I was thinking maybe I just want to believe that the parents are at fault because it makes me seem like there's some sort of semblance of control. Like if you're a good parent, this wouldn't happen.
No, it's like it could still happen, but there's just I thought that there was more the parents
Could have
could
done.
do, could have done. They seemed like, like those like aging boomer hippie parents were like, we sent him an email. It was a good email.
But
And the
yeah,
wife
that
was like,
was
it
weird.
was that wife who was like Jamie Lee Curtis, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. She was like, it was a good email. Like, yeah, the parents annoyed me, like, or confused me. But yeah, it's like I think when it comes to stuff about cults, that ends up being the question. It's like, could this happen to me? Could I have been, if we had been living in that slum, if Dylan Lever's dad, because Dylan Levers was one of my roommates when I lived in a little cottage like this. If his dad came and lived with us and wanted to start a Marines, here's another thing I need to say. A Marines themed cult, it's so funny for Sarah Lawrence. It's like
Oh, I
a
know.
place with no structure, and they just lapped up the first semblance of structure that came into their lives.
I know. It's like, well, I was thinking about like why a cult like this would work so well at Sarah Lawrence, or would it is does it work better at Sarah Lawrence, I guess. And I think one of the things is like Sarah Lawrence is a place where like it's a bunch of people who don't never never were joiners, like never felt,
Mhm.
like there's no sororities and fraternities. Like if you were in a sorority, you would not join a cult because you're in a sorority. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you have a strong sense of like group identity, you're not joining a cult. But these are people who don't have group identity, for better or worse, right? Like were
Mm.
you involved in anything group wise at Sarah Lawrence, Matt? No.
No.
And that was like pretty normal.
Yeah. Yeah. So like
Whereas like
that's interesting.
I work at a university and these kids are into their clubs and their
Mm.
sororities and fraternities, and like it's a huge part of their identity.
Yeah, like I would have said instinctively, like, oh, Sarah Lawrence, non-joiners, non-conformists, they won't join a club. But it's actually like
A cult, you
an
mean?
absence of a cult. An absence of good joining
Mm-hmm.
can lead to bad joining.
Exactly. Like also obviously the time in your life where you're first leaving and your parents and you're living on your own and you're like definitely in a place like looking for identity. I think ultimately when it comes to cults, like if the wrong person comes into your life at the right time, you're just more susceptible to falling prey to their manipulation.
Yeah, I mean, I've like to imagine that I'm not so cult susceptible. Like it's, just based on how hard it is for my school to even get me to participate in mandatory field trips and
Mm-hmm.
like outings. Like I really try to keep a distance from, but maybe I'm like the non-joiner who then give me someone who makes me feel special, you know?
No, I think at this stage in your life, you would not be joining a cult, but like, say something really traumatic happened to you, and you're like searching for answers, basically. And like, they expressed this a few times. Like, he seemed like someone who could just take care of things for you. Like, he's got it.
Yeah.
Like, the desire for someone, for when you're in a place in your life where you just want someone to like lead you.
Hmm.
I think that
Yeah.
everyone's gets to a place in their life like that based on like external or internal circumstances. Like you experience that.
Yeah.
The thing is that so this was a little house, as we mentioned. There were 8 people living there, including his daughter Talia, and not everybody joined the cult. Several of the people who lived there did not, and actually thought he was weird. Like they didn't fall prey to his manipulation, and like that's an
Oh yeah,
interesting.
that's true.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. Why these kids and not the other kids?
Yeah. They were like they saw through it. I don't know. Have you ever had that experience of like seeing through something that all your friends don't see through? Like, do you have any friends who really liked like a movie that you hated?
Of course,
But like a movie that not just you hated, you were like you're being duped, people, you
like
know?
Avatar.
Like Avatar, yeah, like Avatar, like, like I kind of feel that way with people who you don't meet these types so much anymore, but people who thought like Donnie Darko was a really smart movie. That type of person used to run around more than
Well, yeah,
these days.
I think it's the age, but yeah,
The age, the times. And yeah, it's kind of like, the big bunny, come on,
yeah, sure.
spooky old woman.
God, I don't even remember that movie. Spooky old woman.
I think
Bunny, I remember. I think.
I think there was also a spooky old woman.
But yes, of course, there's times, especially with people, where I'm like, I don't really like this person, but I don't say. I'm just always like, people will. I always feel like when it comes to people, like you'll see for yourself. I don't even need to say it
Mm, hmm.
or like make a hard campaign against that person.
But okay, I have gotten into situations in my life that were where I've lost perspective. So I think that is part of
Mm-hmm.
what happened here. Now, I've had, there's something about the loss of perspective that they're just in this room. They've become isolated. The little dramas and insanities of this like space that they've created felt really big. Like I could kind of picture them. There's at one point where one of them, Dan, like takes off. He's like, I'm getting out. And I
Mm-hmm.
could like picture what that felt like on the inside. Like, oh, Dan, like the fresh tea of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Because in this world, that's everything. And I've definitely had that in like certain toxic relationships or friendships where like you lose perspective. And I remember once a certain toxic friendship, and I called my mom like really upset about some little minutia drama that had happened in it because I
Mm-hmm.
like wanted to cry to someone about it. And she was like, "You sound insane right now. Like your life cannot be about this little
Mm-hmm.
thing."
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting and necessary injection of a little bit of perspective. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think there's a
that
lot of parallels that we can find between like cults and abusive relationships.
mm,
You know,
yeah.
it's a very similar manipulation tactic, I think, that is employed. And my question
Yeah.
is, how do we avoid it? Like, if they're, it's just by the grace of God, go we,
Well, that
or
we
like,
hate.
who
We would
doesn't?
love to think that we're safe and we're not safe, and it's upsetting.
But I'm wondering, is there like some sort of like abuse prevention we can start?
Oh, like giving people training and how to
Not
like spot an abuser.
Yeah, not training. So, but like, would that even matter? Because like it happens so slowly, it's so insidious, and you're so insulated. I feel like, again, like you say, there's no objectivity.
Yeah, I mean, it should like probably be like part of sex ed to be like, here are the hallmarks of an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be like X, Y, and Z. X, he makes you cut out people from your life. Y, you're not allowed to ask why. And Z, he goes from here to here to here to here. Like it's
Oh
I
yeah, I
don't
like it. I like it. But that's very good. Write that down. Copyright that instantly.
know.
The thing is though, is I feel like when people are in these situations that they justify all they do is justify it. And also like when you're in these situations, the abuser is so good at making everyone else seem wrong.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
constantly questioning anyone else's narrative or authority or opinion.
He really implanted fake memories in these people.
It's
Even
they
after they were deprogrammed, they were still like, she was like talking about this picture of herself, and she's like, and this is me on this day that my dad, just like really left me hanging high and dry in a way that like damaged our relationship. And then she would like pause and she was like, wait a second. I actually don't think that happened.
Yeah, it's like he implanted memories where he had this like arch enemy who was like the commissioner, his former friend, right? That he
Yeah.
who was like the police commissioner, and he
They used
everything.
to talk 5 times a day on the phone. They were like friends like us.
I know. Were they in a relationship?
That's an amazing, interesting question because it was weird for a male friendship to
Five
be
times a day. And then I read in the emails that the police commissioner would sign his emails love B.
okay. I'm not sold there. Love,
Really?
be,
Sam emailing his buddy, and Sam isn't even like a machismo man, saying love
love,
S.
ass.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. Maybe anyway. So or maybe they're just close friends. So this guy was like the source of all of Larry's problems, and he convinced all of these kids that this guy had come were friends with his parents, that
Friends with their parents.
friends with their parents would come to their homes when they were children. He implanted memories of them meeting this guy's children, being told to poison Larry as children when they before they ever knew he, like obviously this isn't
Yeah.
real. it's so far-fetched, and he was able to convince them of this, that these kids have been poisoning him since they were children.
Yes. And they were like asking this girl about like which memories she thinks are real and which ones are fake. And he was like, "Do you think it's possible that this police commissioner didn't actually come to your house when you were a baby?" And she was like, "No, that I'm pretty sure." Oh my God. It's like she was so sure that happened.
I know. It was actually really interesting. They follow this one woman who I think was the most fucked from the footage that you see of her. Like the most into the most she looked like she was like
Felicia?
Felicia. Yeah, like she was just so into it and so a shadow of a person, just seemed totally psychotic throughout the whole documentary. And then she has this like redemptive arc where she gets out of it and like deprograms herself essentially, and you get to
Yeah,
see it.
after they already started filming the doc.
Yeah,
Like,
so you get to see it happen.
yeah.
It's truly fascinating.
Yeah, she's deep in it when they first start filming her. She's like, and I'm just being poisoned all the time.
Yeah. Oh, because she thinks eventually he convinces them that they're being poisoned as well. And yeah,
Yeah, she's like, these are the medications I take for the damage. Poison, poison, poison. My goodness. What a
because
worldview they end up in.
yeah, that's why Claudia was a call girl, was because he had told her, he convinced her that she was poisoning all of them
Hmm.
and she needed to pay them back for that. And she ended up paying him millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's
So
insane.
upsetting.
Oh my God. Yeah, deeply, deeply, deeply upsetting. Um, okay. So one of the worst things about being in a cult, as opposed to just being kidnapped,
The labor.
the labor, and you emerge from it with legal troubles.
Yeah.
You've been roped into doing such insane shit over the
Yes.
past whatever amount of time that now you're on the hook. And some of
Mhm.
them were on the hook.
One of them in particular, who was like his right hand gal, Isabella, who was obviously deeply manipulated by him, and but she also, she was a victim and a culprit.
Yeah. Yeah. So you find, and they hint that maybe she's kind of like a little bit deprogrammed at the end. She was stuck with it the longest, but she's finally condemned him. He's in jail now for the rest of his life. And, but yeah, so that's an unfortunate thing about being a cult member.
Mm-hmm. You have to pay those legal bills.
Yeah, she was like cycling through attorneys because she needed to find an attorney who like believed her narrative of the cult's truth, which was hard to find. Another thing I wanted to say is, I mean, I'm really interested. I'm really curious how to know more about how they were perceived by others on campus. I want to know, like what their comments were in class. Were they like, well, Larry says, like, were they like bringing that
Yeah,
up?
I know. I'm dying to talk to one of these people who was like knew them, like, because there's one girl who like lived with them, who really was anti Larry. I would go so far as to say against Larry. um, and she
Yeah.
was constantly telling people like,
The one with the short, like sort of pixie cut.
no, the other Raven, the one with
Raven. Oh, she
the
didn't live with them.
oh, she didn't.
No, they were like, and Raven was pretty much there all the time.
Oh, because she was dating Dan, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she would be like, "You're in a cult. This guy's a
Yeah.
pervert. Like, stop doing this." And she would say this to other people on campus. I guess you're just like,
Yeah.
you
I'm sure it
can't.
was a huge deal.
But at the same time, it's like none of them realized, and they've said this multiple times, none of the sort of people who were close to the situation but not in the situation said they could never have imagined how bad it actually was.
Yeah, I mean, how could you? It was so bad. He was like truly an insane and terrifying person. And he recorded himself all the time. So you get to hear just how unhinged this man is.
Yeah, and the documentary and the guy who directed the documentary said that like in the beginning Larry was sending his own footage to him because he thought it made him look prove his points.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so do you think Larry like believes all this stuff about the poison and the police commissioner?
I don't know. I mean, like that's the story he's sticking to and he's not going to deviate from it.
Maybe it's
That's
true.
but that's my big that's what if you became sucked into this?
Maybe we're the ones who are,
You're right.
deluded.
Let's think about that. That is the thing though about you know how like when we talk about like master manipulators and they'll be like they follow this very like clear pattern, right? Very
Yeah.
identifiable. How aware are the manipulators of the fact that they're doing it? Or is it just instinctual to
Yeah.
them?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think they're out to get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Have you ever been like, of course, we've all been manipulative at different points. Can you think
Mm.
of moments where you were manipulative and like kind of knew what you were doing?
I can't think of anything specifically, but I'm sure they were just such I guess the difference is it's like so small scale.
It's so small scale. Like I'm thinking of a moment where like I was in like an argument with someone,
Mm-hmm.
and then like there was like a thing that they had done wrong to me
Mm-hmm.
that I really played up because I wanted the heat off of me for something wrong I had done. And I
Mm.
knew I was doing it as I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yeah. So like I think is that what it's like to be a sociopath?
I guess,
I think
yeah. I think
kind
that
of.
when you
I think you
now
do
if
know.
I like see myself doing things like that in arguments or things like that, I really now I have a desire to be a good person. So I like think, would a good person do this? And then I don't do it. Do you know what I mean?
Same. Yeah, this is from my past, just to be clear, my sordid past.
But I guess like these people are like maybe they even convince themselves that what they're doing is like good for me is good for them.
Yeah, well, I also just think they don't really care. And there was that moment where he said he was building an army. He told someone else what I'm doing. I'm building an army. But like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he never really put them to work doing anything.
No, it's like he was like trying to redo a house.
Yeah. Yeah, it was such a like for a cult that was like so intense in total in the psychological damage and abuse was like so intense. He truly like mind obliterated these people.
Yes.
For all of that, it was such a pathetic cult.
That's exactly. There's no higher
No
purpose. There's
rituals,
no
no
rituals.
product that they're selling.
No, it's like there's nothing at the end of the day. There's no campfire,
Yeah.
there's no like garden.
Yeah, something,
There wasn't
The
even
Nexium.
any, yeah, there wasn't even a recruitment.
Yeah, it was like these four Sarah Lawrence kids. That's all I want. And all this guy's sisters. That was weird
But that is the
to
thing is
me
if all
also.
three of your kids are in a cult, time to
Yeah.
examine, right? Like, what do you think happened there? As we were talking about with parents, like they were just
Oh, they
very
seemed like smart
unloved.
kids too. Like one was a doctor.
One was a Harvard educated doctor. One was going to Columbia.
Yeah, and one was at Sarah Lawrence. If the dummy of the family is the one at Sarah Lawrence, that's a smart family.
Right. And they came from nothing. They were really poor immigrants. Obviously,
Hmm.
they had difficult childhoods as the fault as a result of being like so poor.
Hmm.
But eventually, like the family like owned businesses and a home.
Yeah.
What do you think? They were just like felt very unloved by their parents for some reason, or they didn't have a strong sense of identity.
I don't know. I mean,
There's like genetic factors at play, maybe like prone
I
to
don't
mental
think there's
health issues or something. That's what I mean. Like
we'll never know.
we'll never
We'll
know.
never know until we join a cult or start one, the How to Be cult.
That could be like a that's like kind of we're like, and we will tell you how to be. We'll take care of everything for you.
Yeah.
All you have to do is give
Oh,
us
you know
all
what?
of your labor and money.
This is something that made me feel a little bit like I got the attraction of joining a cult. So one of them was like, I don't know, he's queer somehow, maybe bisexual or something. But he, like many a Sarah Lawrence boy, he came into school straight and was figuring it out as he went along.
Hmm.
And he had at the very beginning of his involvement in this called Larry took him out to get coffee in the city and was like, you know, giving him guidance and advice and listening to him and said like, and he was like, sometimes I wonder if I'm gay, blah blah blah. And Larry was like, you, let me tell you something. I know these things. You're not gay. This and he said he felt like, okay, I don't need to figure that out anymore. He's gonna figure it out for me. And I was like, ooh, that there's something really appealing
That's what
about
I
that.
mean. Yeah, like someone
Having
just gonna
someone
take care of
figure
it
it
for
out
you.
for you.
Yeah, just take it out. Take like this person is all knowing and can. I don't need to search. I just need to ask and he'll tell me.
Yeah,
Hmm.
wow.
Now, ultimately, that didn't work, and they didn't include this in the documentary because it was just one of the things that they felt was gratuitous, and that Dan is his name kept
Yeah.
questioning his sexuality, and Larry grew much more frustrated with him for even thinking about it.
Yes, I remember that from
The article.
the article, and I was like intrigued that it didn't seem to come up at all. And
Yeah. I just don't know how you can live. I mean, it's just incredible that you can live a life like they were living so devoid of joy. But I guess they really wanted out.
yeah, it seemed deeply unpleasant. That's the thing. Like kept thinking like, where's the pleasure in this for him? Also,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so y- you managed to brainwash create 5 zombies for yourself, and
Hmm.
all you've gotten from it is a a girlfriend and a crappy apartment. Okay, you could have had a girlfriend in a crappy apartment without creating 5 zombies. Like
And
what?
millions of dollars.
It was all just going out though.
Yeah. It's like everything in your life can start out so small and innocuous, and then it really can just spin out of control. Like in the article, I had this quote that I wanted to share, where like the summer after sophomore year, Dan wanted to live in the city, and like essentially Larry offered him a place to stay. And he said, part of why I got in a cult at all was because I had no idea how one finds a place to live in New York,
Mm,
which is
little
like
things like that.
these little things like that come in hindsight have such significance.
And college is a time of making little decisions that steer your life in big ways. I'll go study abroad in Israel. Now look
Look,
at me, trapped here.
it's crazy because I remember you being like, I'm not going to study abroad.
I know.
Could you imagine if you hadn't?
And then I saw the Darjeeling Limited movie, and I was like, ooh, exotic vistas. Maybe I do want to study abroad.
See,
If
this is
Yeah,
really
totally.
serious. Like your whole life has been, and likewise, but we're talking about your decisions, these little decisions we make.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
left here, a right there, and there you have it.
There, but
And all of a
for the
sudden you're
grace
in a
of
cult.
God. Hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
I am going to show my kids this documentary though before they go to college.
Oh yeah, for sure. Stay away from dads. Stay away from
Yeah.
dads.
Stay away from dads.
The only man a girl can trust is her daddy, but not other people's.
Yeah. In conclusion,
Wait, okay, here's one more thing I want to say.
okay.
How do we think this is going to come to bear on the PR of Sarah Lawrence, on Sarah Lawrence admissions? Is it going to have any effect?
Well, it seems like you feel it seems like I feel like the university or the college had more responsibility than you do.
I guess I'm just loyal to my cult more than you are. You're a
Now
little less
well,
programmed. I am.
now I love Sarah Lawrence. Everyone knows that. Loved my experience. Didn't join a cult.
Do
Quite the
you? Because
opposite.
you damaged a lot of their property that you never paid them back for.
But I will say they should have known. Now they have a new administration now. None of those people are there that were there when the cult was taking place. Um, I think it will be very, very, in a way, I think it will be very damaging, but then I wonder if like people will, it has more name recognition now.
Yeah, they're like, oh, men can go there?
Right? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
maybe. I mean, I think I think it's bad PR.
Hmm.
Okay, but here's another thing they didn't talk about. I was like, no one's gonna mention that it's the most expensive college in America.
Yeah.
Like
Well, it's not anymore though, but yeah.
there was so much more to discuss there. Like, I actually think the fact that it took place at Sarah Lawrence is a really interesting detail, and they did not get into that. And
Right.
the money, the non-joining, the lack of structure, all of the if I was making the documentary, I would have explored those themes. I would have made the last episode way less of whatever it was because the
Well,
last
I feel very strongly that there should have been another episode, that there should have been 4 episodes,
Okay.
in my
One,
opinion.
exploring those themes that I
And I would
mentioned.
also like to talk to Talia or hear a little update about Talia,
Yeah, actually
or
made
more
yeah.
Talia answers.
I needed
And I
a
would
lot
also
more.
like to get into more about like how he was able to manipulate them from abroad, from a distance.
Yes.
I have some questions.
Are they Jewish? Talia and Larry? Leah? Hey Leah.
I don't
I
know.
really hope
I
they
don't think
better.
his original last name, he changed his last name. His original last name, I think, was Greco, so
Oh,
Italian.
but
But as they say,
real.
all PR is good PR. Do they say that?
All press is good press.
There we go. I don't know this situation, but I do feel like Sarah Lawrence really struggles with like people knowing it exists.
I think Hampshire's going to get a few more applications this upcoming season.
Didn't Hampshire close? It was in danger of closing a few
It's
years
still hanging
ago. Oh, okay. Hampshire. The cult at Hampshire just doesn't have the ring to it, you know?
No, sounds lame and gross, like Hampshire. Sarah Lawrence, yeah, Sarah Lawrence is a much classier joint.
So yeah, I mean, I think that the article and the documentary are a good watch. Would you say the documentary is a good watch?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think the last episode drags.
I liked the last episode because it was like a little bit hopeful, but
Yeah,
I'm hesitant to even say that because of everything they went through. Um, but it's a very difficult watch.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Check it out.
Yeah. Well, this bonus episode was fun to record, even if the subject matter wasn't. Maybe it wasn't fun to record, but it's nice doing a bonus episode.
Our first bonus episode.
Yeah. First, not the last. We'll be back.
If you want more bonus episodes like this, just pledge your loyalty and send us a check for $100,000.
Ask your mom. If she needs to
Ask your
mortgage
mom.
her house, that's fine. All right. Bye, Matt.
Bye bye.